Hi, in this video I will walk you through configuring the Advanced Fraud Detection Suite from the Payment Gateway, Authorize.net. The Fraud Detection Suite is used to help online merchants monitor and decline suspicious credit card transactions. It is one tool to protect you against online credit card fraud. This video is meant specifically as a guide for nonprofits that are using the For a Good Cause online fundraising platform and Authorize.net to process online donations or other online payments. You'll learn our recommended settings to help reduce your exposure to harmful online credit card fraud, such as donation page card testing. Let's get started. Step 1 is to log into your Authorize.net account. Then click Tools across the top. On the left-hand menu, click Fraud Detection Suite. You should see a page like this one with active links to customize various fraud settings, items that will take action to protect you or alert you to suspicious activity. If you find that the Fraud Detection Suite is not installed in your Authorize.net account, then contact Authorize.net support to have them turn it on for you. Turning it on will have to be authorized by the account owner of the Authorize.net account. Let's start by configuring your card testing settings. This protects you from high volume spam of fraudulent donations to your donation page. Let's set your daily velocity filter. Set it at a number of online donations that would be unusual for you to get in one day. So let's enable the filter. We're going to leave this to process as normal and report filters triggered. This will basically send you an alert when you've gone past this limit. We'll set up email alerts in just a moment. Those alerts will basically tell you to log into your account and see what's going on. We'll set this at 25. Click Save. You do the same thing for your hourly velocity. Again, this is a threshold that you want to be alerted when you have more than this number of transactions in a particular hour. If you're getting a really high volume, something that's very unusual for you, you want to log in, check it out, because you may be getting some sort of spam on your donation page. Again, we'll leave this to process as normal because we just want to alert us to this volume. Enable the filter. We'll set this to 10 and click Save. Let's turn on the suspicious transaction filter. This is basically an algorithm that can spot a suspicious transaction. We found this to be pretty accurate. So go ahead and enable this, and you can go ahead and set this to do not authorize, but hold for review. Again, it's a pretty accurate filter. These are not transactions that you want to have authorized. And click Save. One of the most effective filters to guard against high volume form spam is the transaction IP velocity filter. This can monitor the number of transactions per hour that can be submitted from the same computer. So let's turn this on. Let's set this at a small number, let's say 5. So it would allow 5 transactions from the same IP address or computer per hour. We're going to set this to do not authorize and hold for review. You typically do not want to set this to decline. You know, if you're getting a card testing on your donation page, these card testers want information. They typically will stop spamming your page if you no longer are giving them either an acceptance or a decline of a credit card test. Holding transactions for review and then displaying that on screen encourages them to give up. They're not getting the information that they want. Let's click Save. Now let's look at some settings that help verify the card holder is the person using the card. First up is address verification, called AVS for address verification service. This is checking to see if the user knows the address on file for the card. What you see here are the default settings. In most cases, you'll just leave this alone. The top settings, general AVS responses, control a decline of a card when the address cannot be verified. The bottom settings control it when an address can be verified. Typically, as it says here, you only want to decline a card after checking the address if there is no match on the street address, no match on the zip code, where the user doesn't know either one. As you can see, the rest of these are set to allow the card to be processed. If they match really any of these items, street address or zip code, it's okay to know either one. Again, typically you're going to leave these as is. One reason to adjust the settings on this page is if you expect international donations, processing credit cards from outside the United States. Typically the addresses for those cards cannot be verified. So if you expect these international credit card transactions, then you'll want to adjust the settings up here on general AVS responses. You can click to allow B, G, U, S, and E. You can either set them up like this. You can say allow, but maybe to report that this has been triggered to send you an email about this. Or you can just go ahead, and if you know you're going to get these, go ahead and allow those. Otherwise, if you don't expect international donations, go ahead and leave these set to decline. And a decline is okay as opposed to the last screen. Inside for a good cause, if a donor submits the wrong address for the card, legitimate donors do make mistakes. We've got some really good error messaging on there that will instruct them basically how to correct that and try again. So this should be already enabled when you start to configure this particular filter. Now let's take a look at the card security code settings. Again, this is something that you'll just probably leave to the default. This is when you're checking what's called the CCV, which is the 3 to 4 digit number that's either on the back of a Visa MasterCard or on the front of an American Express. Typically you're only declining that if it does not match, if the user enters the wrong number for that particular card. This is really good to kind of check that the person using the card is actually in physical possession of it, because they can turn it over and take a look at that. Let's take a look at the amount filter. In donation form spam, card testers will often submit $1 donations. So we recommend configuring a bottom transaction amount. You can set that to $2. Upper limit, really set that to anything that you want. Something high is fine. And set this to do not authorize and hold for review. It's really extremely rare, and you really don't want $1 donations, so these are not transactions that you want to authorize. And click Save. The next fraud filters that are in here are called ECommerce Settings. We're going to skip these since nonprofits typically aren't selling physical goods. These are not very helpful. This is a lot of checking the shipping address versus billing address, some of that stuff. It's not extremely helpful for nonprofits. IP administration you can use later if you need to block an IP address that you know has submitted fraudulent transactions. You can do that here. Now that we have the fraud filters set up, you'll want these filters to alert you via email when the filter is triggered. On the right, you can click to configure your email alerts. Just choose a user that should get these emails and click Save. You want to instruct that person to look for these emails and instruct them on what actions that you want them to take if a transaction has triggered a filter. And that could be anything from logging in just to inspect the transaction, just to see why it was declined, what fraud filter was triggered. It could be to manually approve or disapprove something that's held for review. Maybe it's also beneficial to jump in, take a look. Maybe a donor got caught in a fraud filter, but you think they're legitimate. Take a look at their contact information, follow up with them, and get that donation offline. Next thing you need to configure is the online error response that shows to the donor on the donation page if their transaction was rejected due to a fraud setting. So let's click on customer response. You basically just need to let the users know that the transaction is being held for review. This is really when this comes into play. So like where we set the transaction velocity IP setting that we want to hold transactions for review after a certain number that are submitted from the same computer. What you want to do is have something on screen that lets the user know that. So this third setting here will do that. Thank you. For security reasons, your order is currently being reviewed. You also could click here and enter a custom message. That's perfectly fine as well. But this third one will do the job for you. And again, this is important to encourage those card testers that may be trying to start to bombard your donation form with credit card tests. We want not to give them any information. We want to say, hey, we're just going to hold that transaction. And that typically encourages them to go away. Okay, so your Authorized.net payment gateway is now configured to protect your nonprofit from online fraud. This kind of concludes the setup of the fraud detection suite and all the pieces there. If you have questions or your nonprofit has experienced online fraud, please get in touch with us at support@forgoodcause.com, or you can call us at 770-517-5962. We could help you review your fraud settings or offer you additional protections that we have, such as deploying a reCAPTCHA when needed. So hope you enjoyed the video. Please reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.